Hello everyone, this is Deborah Owens with another episode of Wisdom for Today. And recently I shared my presentation on CRT with you, and I discussed the fact that we were invited to a local church to meet some other pastors in the area and to share about our ministry. I spoke on CRT and Bill spoke on the civil rights movement. He spoke from his heart. As many of you know, Bill was a college student during the civil rights movement in the early 60s, and he organized a storm and marched in the civil rights movement with Dr. King. And so he shared from his heart what that meant. The audience asked a few questions, and there aren't too many people who remain here with us on earth that were active during the civil rights movement. Those people, many of them have passed on. In fact, Bill has buried, sadly, many of his friends and co-laborers of that movement, and even, people that he grew up with. So Bill's 82 years old. He has lots of wisdom. May not have the stamina or the strength to share, but he has the wisdom, the background, the knowledge, and the information that we can learn from. And I think that in the culture today, we need to remember the sacrifices that many paid for. Not only did Martin Luther King Jr. give his life for the freedoms that we enjoy today, but there were many others that sacrificed. In fact, there were whites who also sacrificed during the civil rights movement. And, today our freedoms are seemingly not important to many political figures and leaders in our country. They're stripping away our freedoms, and we have to stand up for them. We have to stand up for our freedom. So listen with an open heart to what Bill has to share. Remember that he is 82 years old, and he's still got his boots on. He's still a soldier. He's still working. He's still sharing. He's still trying to do his best to his ability with the strength and the energy that God gives him each day. And so I ask you to remember us in your prayers. Remember our ministry in your prayers, and share this video with your friends, your neighbors, and be sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram. We're no longer on Twitter, but share it on your social media platforms. Bill and I so appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll be making some announcements soon. In fact, our benefit luncheon is coming up, and we'll be making some announcements during our benefit luncheon and on another episode of Wisdom for Today. So here is the Reverend Bill Owens speaking on what it was like for him during the civil rights movement. This has been Dr. Deborah Owens with another episode of Wisdom for Today. God bless you until next time.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? It's a blessing to be here. Thank you so very much. I want to mention my friends who are here, my dear friends, John and Erica, Nate, who's like my son, and our pastor, Pastor Willie Davis. Well, what I do at 82 years old, I don't make a lot of notes because I've lived a long time, and it just comes from my experience. And I've always had good relationships with people of all races because of my heart. They've always been good people, even during the days of segregation. There were great white friends that we had because people are just people. and they will see the goodness in your heart or the weakness in your heart without looking at the color of the skin. If you're kind, people will be kind to you. It's just as simple. I was born, we were living in 2 rooms, 2-room shack, 6 children, mother and father. And my mother always instilled in us, get an education. Always, all of my life, all of our lives. So one thing I learned is in those formative years of a child's life, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, you put with a child is set. In certain ways, they're set if you do that. And children need a mother and a father in the home. They need both sexes. They need a good father to father them. I've looked at boys who were not fathered, and it's a difference. A boy needs to be fathered, and girls need to be fathered and mothered. You need both of them. Plays such an important role. And that was one of the breakdowns in the black community. There were so many boys that did not have fathers in the home. And it makes a difference. I've studied it, I've lived it. So this thing on race relations, it's a thing of the heart. I've always gotten along with all people because my mother taught me to. In our home, we respected people for who they are. And you can tell at my age, I lived a long time. I lived in the days of segregation. And I remember a comical incident. At that time, the insurance collector came to your house to get your premium. You probably don't know anything about that. But we had a white insurance collector to come in and never took his hat off because we were black. He never took his hat off. Kept it. So I was away at college that first year and had been in the civil rights movement, so I was on fire. I just stood up and said, take that off your head in my mother's house. Don't ever wear that hat in this house again. I mention that because times have changed, so we will look down on it in many ways. But being in the civil rights movement, it changed the hearts of all Americans. It didn't matter about the color, because being in the movement gave you a sense of dignity, respect. When I marched with Dr. King, it did something to you. It was life-changing. You saw hope. You saw a difference out of love. We didn't march out of hate. We marched out of love. Yeah. And that made all the difference in the world. And America today is a better place for it. It took a peaceful man to do that. If he had used a gang method that they use now, black people would have been slaughtered. But he marched out of love, turned the other cheek. And I marched with Dr. King, and it was a pleasure. I was in college, and he would come to Nashville where I was in college, and there were 3 major universities there. There was Tennessee State University, Fisk University, and Meharry Medical College. At that time, blacks went to black medical colleges, and so Meharry Medical College was in Nashville, right down the street from where I went to school. And when it was time to march, thousands of people marched for civil rights for Dr. King. And it made a difference, it was all out of love. There was no hate, and we had training we had to go through the march. And the training was, they would take a cigarette butt, and you at the counter, sitting down at the counter having a sit-in at a lunch counter, and they'd take their cigarette butt and put it on your neck. on fire. And we were trained what to do. We were never to fight back. We were never to retaliate. And that built character. We won't change, and we'll get it peacefully. And so it was a great day. It was a great time in America. For the Civil Rights Movement, it was a great time in America because not only did black march, whites marched with us. I was in college in Nashville, Tennessee at the time, and you had several key universities there. You had Vanderbilt, you had Tennessee State, you had Fisk, and American Baptist, and we all marched downtown, several thousands of us. As a matter of fact, we closed downtown Nashville. But it made a difference, and Nashville was not a bad city for race relations. It just was not. And it was a good city to have the marches in. And Dr. King, Thurgood Marshall, and all those people came through, and it was all about peace. Do it with peace and love, not hate. Never retaliate. And I think I told you in the training of the Civil Rights Movement, they would come and knock you off the counter, hit you upside your head, because you had to be able to take it. You had to prove you could sit there and take a person knocking you down, take a person in you, and you could not fight back. It had to be done through love and take the beatings and take the hard knocks, and there were many. But it changed the course of this country with peace. What if we had gone violent? What if we had done that? We would have been wiped out. It took love. It took understanding. And it took an understanding of what you should do and what you should be and why you're doing it. You're not just doing it for you today, you're doing it for America. Not just black America, you're doing it for America. So this country could live up to its reason for existing. But you gotta earn it. And we did. And it made all the difference in the world today. And we built character. And before you marched, because you didn't know what was going to happen when you marched and sat down at those counters downtown. You didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know who would knock you down or who put a lit cigarette on your neck. You didn't know, so you have to go through training or you couldn't do it. If you couldn't take the training, because if we had fought back, it would have been a bloodbath. Couldn't fight back. It had to be in love. So race relations in this country has come from so far. It has come from so far. That was a time we couldn't sit in this room together as equals. Unless we the waiter or the waitress, we were not allowed in this room. But look at where this country has come from. It's living up to its creed, the greatness of America, that blacks can do anything they want to do if they do it. And one of the challenges the African American community has is a lot of fatherless homes. And that's so important to have a father to model manhood with dignity and class. Made all the difference in my life. So America's a great place. This is a great place that we could make so many changes in a short period of time, really, that we can sit in this room together. I worked at the hotel as a waiter, but you could not sit down. You better not sit down with a white person. You better not sit down with a white person. And they always let you know your place. But Dr. King came along with the idea of love. Love and take it. This is a price you'll pay for your children enjoying the freedom, that we enjoy today. Nobody would have seen this 50 or 60 years ago, that we could assemble as brothers and sisters with love and appreciation and respect for each other. It made all the difference in the world. So where we are today with race relations, we're in a good place. Some of our, and I mean this, some of our very best friends are white. I mean we are friends. Some of our very best friends are white. By the way, before I forget, I want to thank John and Erica and Reverend Willie Davis for being with us today. They are great friends. But when we marched in Nashville, Tennessee, it was a joy to march. I remember one march we had 2,000 people, students from the colleges, to march from on the outskirts of Nashville to downtown Nashville. And we marched, and we had no fear, and we were willing to suffer whatever it took. In the civil rights movement, a lot of people think it was just black people who marched, but many white people marched with us. There were many white people. When we had those large marches, many of them were white. Most of them were college students. You had the medical school there. You had 4 colleges right there in Nashville where I marched with Dr. King. And they all came together. And you knew then that in the hearts of our white brothers and sisters that they cared because they marched with us. We didn't march by ourselves. If you see the pictures of us marching and Dr. King leading, but there were many whites who marched with us because they wanted us to have the rights also. They loved people. I don't think a lot of people really realize the leadership of Dr. King. You know he was a great leader, you know he was a man, but he put in us love. You must love and take the hate. You must love it, and he gave his life for it. So we're sitting here today as a result of the civil rights movement, both black and white. So we learn to look at the heart of a person, not the color of the skin, because you got some black people and white people with black hearts. So we sit here and love together and fellowship together, and we enjoy each other and share with each other and share the experiences, the good and the bad, and life, just life, because life comes at all of us. We all live, and God has been a blessing to this country. This country is blessed with our race relations. We're very blessed. And when I hear hate mongering, I see some of these stars turn their back on the American flag. I can't believe it. How can you do that? Look at where you are today. You should have been living 50 years ago. You turn your back and do what you're doing now, and they'd show you something. And some people are not satisfied. I don't care what and you can do anything in this country you want to do. I was born living in 2 rooms, a 2-room shack, the living room, which was the bedroom, and the kitchen. 2 rooms with 6 people. But America afforded me the opportunity for an education. My mother and father always put in us, get an education. That's your way out. And there was not a time I didn't know I was going to college because they instilled it in us. And our black boys need fathers. There's so many of our black boys don't have fathers in the home. And it makes all the difference in the world. Now, 82, I have a 10-year-old boy. Is that right? A 9-year-old girl. Yeah, okay. And it's a blessing, such a blessing, that a man 82 years old can have a 10-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl. He's 10, he's 9.
Soon to be 9, soon to be 10.
Okay. When you get 82, you forget sometimes. Sometimes I have to ask my wife, now, what is this? What is that? But I've lived a good life, a blessed life. I thank God for America today. I thank God from where she's come from, that I can sit here with you today in fellowship and love and fellowship. I couldn't do that when I was in college at first. I was a waiter at the hotel where they had banquets, and I was a waiter. And you came out to the audience with your uniform on to let them know you were not a part of the group, but you were a waiter. And look where we've come from. Look where this country has come from. It's the greatest country in the world. I wouldn't want to be anywhere but America. And I hate to see young people, some of our black young people, dishonoring the flag, dishonoring this country. There was a young lady a few days ago, wasn't it, turning on the flag. I can't believe that.
And they've made their money under the American flag.
Yeah, we've come under the American flag. And they enjoying the fruits that I never could have enjoyed back then. But some reason, somebody told them the wrong story. This is still the greatest country in the world. And there's nowhere in the world I would rather be than right here in America. It's the greatest country in the world. So I tell that story. And we teach our children, don't look at the color of the skin. Look at the character of the person. Look at the person's heart. And I told you some of our very best friends are white. I'm glad to have John and Erica here today. They are great friends. So this is a great country. Aren't you glad for America? Give America a big hand. Yes, I'm open for questions because I could talk to the bar. I've learned so much in 82 years, I could talk to the bar. Now, I'm open for questions. When I was at one of the lowest ebbs of my life, I was broke. And went in for prayer for a few days. And some people believe God speaks to you, but I believe he speaks to your heart. And the Lord gave me several things. I was broke, was enrolled in Oral Roberts University, was on for the holidays. And if he tells you something, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it wasn't him. So the Lord spoke to my heart and said, recruit students for Oral Roberts University. Recruit students that nobody else wants. I'll give you students everybody wants. Now here I am as broke as I could be. I probably had $10. I was visiting my mother before I was going back for the next semester. And this is what he said. And I believe in following the leading of the Lord. In those quiet moments when God speaks to your heart. And he said, recruit students for Oral Roberts University. Recruit students that nobody else wants. I'll give you students everybody wants. I'm going to give you a wife who love you and work with you. Now here I am, a very broke man. I didn't recruit 10 students. I recruited 400. I put 400 students at Oral Roberts University. He said, I'm going to give you a wife that'll love you and work with you. And I don't know if Deborah wants me telling this. But one day the Lord said, that's your wife. And that, you know, I'm old. She was good looking. And that's the truth from here to heaven. He said, that's your wife. I said,
Keep it clean now, Pastor.
Now, that's the truth from here to heaven. That is the honest truth. And he didn't give me 20 students. I was an evangelist. I went across the country speaking in churches. You can come to Oral Roberts University. We put 400 students there. That's a lot of students from all over the country. And it was a blessing. And I believe in letting the Lord lead me in whatever I do. I believe in being led by the Lord. I go in prayer and just lay before the Lord and wait for answers. 400 students, that's a lot of students that this ministry that we recruit. I didn't know Oral and Rich, I didn't know them. But I was bringing so many students and parents to the campus, they sent for me. They said, we don't know who this black guy that is downstairs or what he wants. So they sent for me and said, we just want to know you. So you bringing all these pastors. So it shows if you follow the leading of the Lord, what he can use you to do. And your gift will make room for you. So they gave me a department just from me, just bringing people to the campus. I'd have pastors to come and say, walk across the campus, look at it. Didn't seek to know anybody, didn't seek to know them. They sought to know me. And we can make a difference in the lives of so many people. So that's my story. How God blessed me and brought me when I really surrendered it all. When I thought life was over and I just went before the Lord. And God will deal with all of us to do a greater work to help people make this world a better place and bring people to Christ. Thank you very much.
Amen.